Big coke vibes going on here. They coked out, question mark? Derek's 100% on coke. Fucking guaranteed. What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're gonna be talking about cocaine. Yes, indeed. This is, I was not expecting people to be, speculating about the cognitive enhancing stack that I was using for the Dan Bilzerian podcast, but interesting nonetheless that the mention of my cocaine use came up in the comment section. The tried and true go-to stimulant, of course, being cocaine. So anyways, the first thing that I noticed was maybe y'all disagree, but for some weird reason, my cocaine spidey sense is tingling for Derek in this interview, LOL. He's just so much more energetic than normal, constantly talking and such. So this is one of the biggest threads. This was on the clip about Melanotan II, peptides, ice baths, and his current diet. Some other notable comments have popped up. Big coke vibes going on here. They coked out, question mark? Derek's 100% on coke. Fucking guaranteed. Is Derek on coke? So going back to that thread, that was kind of the one that snowballed a bit. I commented, I replied, and I am going to be telling you guys indeed what the stack is. So let's see here. We got, and looks more confident. Bro's tweaking 100, no doubt. Bro, 100% man's bouncing. So I said, I'll make a video on my podcast, Cognitive Stack. LOL, he was definitely on, in all fucking caps, for this podcast. Caleb Ray, definitely not cocaine. Cocaine is terrible for any sort of benefit other than having fun. It makes you talk fast and process thoughts faster. That's it. And it's very inconsistent and damaging. Not Derek's style, in my opinion, but who knows? Maybe he did like one bump. Yeah, I've never seen Derek this energetic and willing to talk. Bro's on something hard. Yeah, I don't think he's using. I'm just saying he was on for this podcast. Adderall can make you talk relentlessly and as well as more energetic, focused on a convo. Tom Gord. That's probably hard to get these days. Coke doesn't give you this sort of high. It gives you sweating bullets, erratic hand gestures, erratic haste speech, stuttering, erratic eye movement. So who knows, Adderall or just weed? Dunno. How could we go from fucking Adderall to weed? Just bro talking to bro. Derek talks a little bit faster than usual. Jocko Flacco, always on cocaine for sure, 100%. He's talked about abusing stimulants before, man. I wouldn't be shocked if he blew a few lines with Dan. You definitely haven't been around people doing coke, LOL. Damn, dude, I guess I gotta find me some friends who do coke now. 3 exclamation points. He's talking to an infamous meme in person. So this, that, what is which? What? So this, that, what is which? I would be the same, LOL. So you haven't been around coked up people, but you feel qualified to say if somebody's coked up or not. I'm probably wrong about Derek, but at least I know what to look for. Clearly not. If you think this guy must be on coke, crying, laughing face, here's a fucking thumbs up, buddy. Probably snorted some TMAA. He's not on coke. Coke makes someone a ton more intense than this. Depends how much you take. I mean, I could have snorted a grain or two. Add more plates, more dates. Oh shit, does it have cocaine on it? Fucking looking at me emoji ×2. So this is, does my stack indeed contain cocaine? Because I don't know, I guess I was pretty high energy in the podcast. One thing I can say is there was indeed a cognitive stack, which I did mention that I would transparently disclose what it was. And there was some heavy stimulant use. So it's not like this is that fucking far off, dude. But the flow of the conversation, like why was it, why was I so energetic? Why was I fucking bouncing, bro? Not that I really was, but realistically, it was just a very, very fluid conversation with good dialogue, good organic like tangents and whatnot. Some good fucking jokes. It was just a good time. But ultimately, to be honest, the reason for that is mainly just the topics that I had pre-selected. I had not a script necessarily, but just like a big bullet point list of stuff that I felt like was, just topics that I could then like roll into like a fucking 10-20 minute conversation easily. Because at the end of the day, we have a lot of overlap in interests. A lot of the previous experiences he had in life were very, very, like, I don't know, just some of our interests are very, very aligned in some, like, the pharmacology, in the, you know, some of the old, you know, pickup shit back in the day that we both had experience with, developing, you know, self-improvement related shit. And then a lot of stuff I was just interested in general, you know, like how taxes fucking work for gambling. Like a lot of, I don't know, just a lot of stuff that was organically flowing. And I did have a predetermined, like, certain topics if, you know, I wanted to have a structured, you know, tangent into a new topic. I did have like a cemented list of stuff that I kind of like really wanted to know the answers to while I was there. So I didn't want to forget it. So for me, a lot of these topics, like when I'm picking them and I'm the host of the podcast, like it's really fucking easy for me to get in a zone and get in a role when I'm asking about stuff that I'm like heavily interested in, like stuff that is of my very, very specific owned in on questions that I've designed based on what I'm most highly interested in what is like a very, very rare opportunity to talk to somebody who has very unique life experiences. Like this is like, how could you fucking not expect me to be like more energetic or more, you know, like obviously I'm just like enthralled in the fucking conversation. There's a lot of random stuff that came up that was like totally right up my lane. Like the fucking, when he was talking about how he had a demon face on Melanotan II, like how many times have I had to like avoid being seen in public for like an hour because I took my Melanotan and my fucking face looked like a goddamn like Hellboy, like literally what he fucking said. Like I have the same problem. So like it was always embarrassing when I used to use the tanning beds pretty I don't know, not like pretty hardcore at the time when I was doing Melanotan like religiously. One of the summers that, you know, I was like really going gung-ho trying to get as fucking dark as possible. And I would like pin it and then I would basically rush into the tanning booth after leaving my place and just like try and get into the gym I was at with the tanning thing and get into the tanning booth with seeing as little people as possible because my face was like a fucking tomato. Like that's how bad the flushing is. It's like a niacin flush times, I don't know, a certain magnitude, and it lasts for way too long and it's kind of annoying. So there's just like a lot of stuff that overlapped, like I said, that like honestly, me trying to summarize it will not do it justice. I would recommend you go watch it if you haven't seen it. Like there is a lot of discussion about stuff that aligns with my interests and probably aligns with yours when it comes to HRT, pharmacology, you know, cognitive enhancement, I don't know, mental clarity, performance enhancement, women, dating, social status, fucking wealth accumulation, just so many different things. And, you know, it was just a good conversation. So ultimately that was kind of the root of it. But yeah, of course, I'm going to use some fucking pharm, you know, dude, like I'm going to have some pharmacology involved. Like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Of course, I at least had my nootropics in the game. So this is, for me, as I mentioned on Joe Rogan's podcast, I do use Gorilla Mind Smooth on a daily basis. This is my background player. It's not something that's going to get me like this though, where I'm talking like, you know, energetically, I'm enthusiastic. I'm kind of like I guess to some extent it gives you mental clarity, some fluidity, but ultimately the main attributes of this are, you know, like memory formation, information retention, mental clarity, yes, and fluidity, and just, you know, good recall of information, being able to articulate well. Some of this does stem from the cholinergics ultimately. So this is, you know, the alpha GPC, the acetylcholinesterase inhibitors like the Bilzerian, also the dopamine precursors like the L-tyrosine is a mood elevating agent that is stimulant free. But taking this on its own, you're not going to be like all of a sudden transform into a fucking social monster. That's not what it works like. It's not like you're going to turn into a, I don't know, like a good podcast host when you otherwise wouldn't have been. So like this is something I'm on all the time. Like regardless if I'm low energy in a video here, like my energy levels vary depending on the day, obviously. Like some of it is just luck of the draw too, on like if you're feeling good that day. Like have you ever just had a day where you just feel shitty for like no apparent reason, you have no explanation why? Like sometimes you just have those days, dude. And like fortunately, this was a day I was just fucking on point, dude. And this was even when I was really underslept. So the underslept thing is kind of where we get into the intensity of the pharmacology and the cocaine claims. Do they really live up to the hype? Is that what I did to stay like this fucking wired and locked in? Quick side tangent to bring you a note from our sponsors. This is Seed Synbiotic, the daily pre and probiotic formula, Synbiotic, that I use to support gut barrier integrity, my gut microbiome in general, whatever potential interactions occur with the gut-brain axis. Like for me, the gut microbiome is an area that I am heavily interested in, but frankly don't really understand. So when I don't understand something, I like to defer out to experts who actually do this for a living. And when it comes to gut support, I had been basically using a bunch of strains picked out of a hat by random companies in probiotics, not really knowing if they're good or bad or what. But Seed was the first company I had seen actually dig into obscure literature and come out with stuff that was reinforced in human supported data as opposed to just random like rats and shit. So for me, this was highly interesting. I heard about it a few years ago for the first time on a podcast. At the time, they didn't ship to Canada, but now they do. And fortunately for me, I'd actually been talking about it with Leo on a podcast, Super Physiological Man podcast, as well as just, behind the scenes, I was asking for tips on not autoimmune, but more like anti-inflammation stuff, as well as just like cognitive support, mental clarity, and gut health. And this is one of the things that he said he used religiously as somebody who previously battled with Crohn's. He is very mindful of what he puts in his mouth, and the probiotic formulas he'd used in the past, he found to be sub-efficacious. And then when he came across this, he really liked, the literature supporting it, and he highly recommended it to me. And I was like, okay, well, at this point, this seemed like the premier company in the industry as far as a probiotic that's supported. Now it's pre and probiotic for this formula, but supported by actual good quality literature. Now for me, it turned out they did now ship to Canada, and shortly thereafter, they ended up reaching out to me, which was really cool because I like to work directly with companies that I actually use their stuff, or I find high level practical application in people who align with my channel, or stuff that seems really promising or highly useful, or just, basically, you're never gonna see me do an ad for a random, I don't know, some fucking random thing that I literally see no value in, essentially, unlike a lot of other influencers in the world. Unfortunately, some of the biggest influencers will plug shitty NFTs that they don't even care about, and pull rugs out of their entire audience. People will plug random mobile games that they wouldn't even play and say they're super fun, stuff like that. Not what I'm about. So for me, Seed is something I actually use every day in the morning when I wake up, and some of my closest friends have actually subscribed to since they saw me, partner with the company. So that's pretty cool as well. So as far as what it is exactly, it's a pre and probiotic 2-in-1 capsule that supports your gut health, skin health, and a bunch of other benefits that you would not assume to be the case from something that you would otherwise think just prevents you from getting, diarrhea or something that's gut related. So there are 24 clinically studied strains in the product. They're also sustainably delivered every month, and in your first purchase you get the glass jar, which is infinitely refillable. So they send you compostable, biodegradable, recyclable packaging each month with your refill, and then you just fill it back up in this thing. And as far as the kind of systemic benefits that it supports, other than just what you probably assume to be the case with a probiotic related formula, it also is not limited to just gastrointestinal health, which supports digestive health to maintain regularity, ease bloating, and alleviate occasional constipation. But additionally, gut barrier integrity helps maintain healthy gut barrier function and integrity. Gut immune function supports healthy gut immune function and crosstalk between immune and intestinal cells, which again, when it comes to things like leaky gut, very, very common nowadays. Actually, a lot of autoimmune issues are unknowingly by many caused by poor GI health. Unfortunately, a lot of people deal with this stuff without even realizing it, and supporting a healthy gut microbiome, I think, is of high importance that a lot of people overlook entirely and end up on random medications that otherwise degrade their health further, to be honest. Cardiovascular health as well. Promotes heart health, supports healthy intestinal recycling of cholesterol and bile. Dermatological health supports healthy skin, and micronutrient synthesis, something that is of prime importance to individuals in the fitness industry trying to build muscle, supports folate B9 production via intestinal synthesis of bioactive forms of folate. It helps you assimilate nutrients more efficiently, because essentially if your gut health is poor, you're not absorbing stuff, you will not partition nutrients effectively and actually build tissue or recover effectively. So like I said, it is 24 strain, broad spectrum, pre and probiotic formulated for digestive, gut immunity, additional systemic benefits I mentioned, and is comprised of 53.6 billion active fluorescent units And the kind of delivery system, it's this 2-in-1 ViaCap technology. It's like a capsule. Inside a capsule, protects against stomach acid, digestive enzymes, bile salts for viability through digestion. So basically it ensures the probiotics actually make it to the end of the small intestine for delivery into the colon rather than being degraded into nothingness, which may otherwise happen with other brands that do not utilize this kind of a novel technology. So again, it's delivered sustainably every month. And it is something that I otherwise utilize myself on a daily basis, and I would highly recommend it if you are looking for a pre and probiotic gut health support supplement that otherwise has actual clinical efficacy, reinforced in the literature for humans and not just mice, rats, etc. So anyways, you can check it out in the description below. There's a link there to get 15% off your first month's supply of seed. You just use code Derek at checkout. Click the link in the description below to get started, and thank you to Seed for sponsoring another video and seeing the overlap in my channel, because again, they choose us because they realize you guys are individuals who otherwise identify with these same kind of like self-improvement, health support, preventative medicine kind of stuff that I identify heavily with. The same reason I use this stuff. The same reason a lot of you guys would probably align with it and think that it is worthwhile to explore further, or even just deep dive down the rabbit hole of gut health separately, even if you're not going to get the product. Like, this is stuff I'm trying to educate myself on. I'm sure a lot of you guys are probably interested in too. So thank you to Seed for supporting the channel, and thank you to you guys for supporting me through your purchases of products that are featured on the channel as well. It's highly appreciated. Helps expand the brand and support the expansion of more plates, more dates. So anyways, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Because this was an important podcast for me. Like, this is big for the channel, and I wanted to make sure it went fucking well. So what did I do exactly? So again, I was on 6 caps of Gorilla Mind Smooth. The dosage of Gorilla Mind Smooth can vary depending on what the mental demands are, but for the entire fucking trip, I was on 6 caps a day. So that's, like 1,200 milligrams alpha GPC, like literal Alzheimer's dose. We have the 1,500 milligrams L-tyrosine, huperzine A, ginkgo, etc. But anyways, onto the stimulants and whatnot. Actually, something first off that might be worth touching on first is the phenibut or phenibut. I don't know, whatever you want to fucking call it. This is a compound that I have not talked about on the channel for a minute. This is something I used to use in like job interviews way back in the day, business presentations, like university presentations and whatnot, as well as like way back in the day for dates and whatnot. Like when I was like first getting into the cold approach stuff, the pickup stuff, like this was sort of like a crutch I used as a way to kind of like inhibit any level of anxiety. It kind of smooths it out a little bit. So again, this is something that I have not really used for a pretty long time. But for me, I was actually pretty nervous about my equipment, to be honest, more so than the actual podcast. So it's interesting that the comments are, I'm definitely on coke, I'm definitely doing this, but like ultimately my anxiety rooted itself in my ability to ensure that the podcast functioned correctly, rather than that I facilitated it well and had good questions in conversation and dialogue. Because for me, I've never done a fucking podcast. Like, I've never hosted one where I literally bring equipment to somebody else's house, set it up. Well, actually I did it with Chris a long time ago, but it was with much more user-friendly, like bad equiment. It's kind of hard to explain. Like, this is I used like webcams back then for my cameras. This is, as well as an iPhone. This is the camcorder I was using. I had like 2 HD camcorders going. I had a Scarlett i8 soundboard connected to my laptop. I had 2 microphones going. I had to make sure the gain wasn't all fucked up. So I'm like being audio engineer / video technician guy, while for the first time, while simultaneously facilitating what, I'm trying to make a good, high quality podcast, conversation wise. So my anxiety was more so, I was trying to not let my brain get sidetracked by the worry that my equipment would fail or have some technical glitch. Because for me, I've actually had experiences where I filmed like full videos before on a camera, and then it would overheat, and then it would just fucking corrupt the file, or I would have a camera literally, I don't know, like die, like in the middle of a podcast, or not a podcast, in the middle of like filming YouTube videos before. Numerous things that have just gone awry, like random stuff that you would not think. So when I have like a bunch of different devices going at once. Like usually I just worry about this mic attached to my shirt and this camera sitting in front of me. But when I have 2 camcorders I've never used, SD cards in them, I've never, dealt with formatting. I've never dealt with fucking making sure they're gonna be filming the right format to the memory card, ensuring that there's enough space on it for the length of file that I'm doing. This is, a 3+ hour podcast. Making sure that the extension cord has like multiple outlets is not like, has too much shit plugged into it, or it's like too far away from the thing and one of the things pops out in the middle. The Scarlett i8, the gain is set properly. It's connected to my GarageBand properly. My MacBook is not gonna fucking crash in the middle and freeze or something because I have too many tabs open, which is a bad habit of mine. Just a bunch of different things, dude. So you imagine that's going on in my head simultaneously whilst concurrently doing the actual, having the conversation. So for me, Phenibut was something I used during this one. This is anxiolytic GABAergic. It's like a GABA analog actually, and it's very, very good at what it does. I would not recommend taking it necessarily. It is something that it was actually it's an over-the-counter supplement, or it was, but then more recently, the FDA came in and they decided they didn't like it, so it has since been pulled from the market. I had some residual supplements left back when it was, over the counter and totally fine to buy. So I had some of that, and that was, there's a fine line you play with Phenibut too. If you have too much, you end up just fucking knocking yourself out and going to sleep, because it is a very potent sleep aid, and irresponsible supplement companies actually used to put this stuff in daily sleep formulas, which is absolutely baffling to me, given the fact that it actually has dependence and withdrawal issues. Like if you use this stuff every day, you will have a nasty withdrawal period after. It's actually very, very substantial for something that was otherwise just a, supplement at the time. So, even back in the day when I used this a lot, it was, 2 times a week max. And because I knew any more than that, you could end up with dependence issues, withdrawal issues, etc. So anyways, I had a, what I would consider to be a moderate dose, 1,500 milligrams is what I use personally on an empty stomach with the rest of my stuff. Which will, again, stimulants we'll be getting to shortly. So that was to basically take my fight or flight down a peg. So kind of like the antithesis of Coke, smooths it out. As well, the L-theanine in Gorilla Mind Smooth, forgot to mention, pretty critical add-on or adjunct for a high stimulant day. This is something that kind of smooths out the overactivity in your brain that otherwise occurs with stimulants. It also helps people get to sleep that are, otherwise trying to work stimulants out of their system still. It's a very, very good ingredient. One of the very most common go-to nootropic stacks is just standard caffeine plus L-theanine. Very, very good combo in my opinion. So stimulant-wise, what did I do? The main thing was this, Gorilla Mode Energy. So for me, I do still have Gorilla Mind Rush left. If you guys don't know Gorilla Mind Rush, it is the now discontinued formula because again, certain ingredients come under higher scrutiny as the years progress, and then, it's impossible to sell the formula anymore. So certain things you gotta just pull. So Gorilla Mind Rush is the fucking god tier nootropic stimulant complex in my opinion. And this is, in my opinion, the best alternative. But the reason I like this is because I can fit way more L-tyrosine in it because it's a powder rather than Gorilla Mind Rush. So even though I have Gorilla Mind Rush bottles left over, for me, getting that L-tyrosine in at a higher dose, it's very, very uplifting, mood elevating. It's not euphoric necessarily, but it's it definitely gives you a boost in just general sense of well-being, which was otherwise, a desired outcome for me. Because again, at the time I was a little bit, just trying to be as not stressed out as possible, trying to facilitate this thing. Had my Instagram was banned at the time too. There's a lot of stuff kind of up in the air at the time, but putting that stuff, out of sight, out of mind, just being, focusing on having a good time and having a good conversation. That was my goal. And I think that I definitely accomplished that. But for me, again, I was perpetually underslept this entire trip. And by the time I got to Vegas, this was halfway through the trip. So for me, this is multiple days of sleep deficit at this point. So I needed a pretty big stim bomb to get me dialed in. So for me, was it cocaine? No, it was 2 scoops of this bad boy. So this had 3,000 milligrams of extra L-tyrosine for me. 375 milligrams of caffeine as opposed to, a 300, or a 350 that you'd find in gorilla mode. 375 N-phenethyl dimethylamine citrate. This is the foundational backbone of my kind of like stimulants for the day. For me, I just mix this in like Diet Sprite, Diet 7-Up or something. And for me, I like sipping on it, and it gets me really, really dialed in for podcasts when I don't have enough sleep. And even when I'm well rested, this is something that I would still use for cognitive enhancement purposes intermittently during days that I need to be more productive, energetic, etc. This is the only thing that's like the background player on an everyday basis that I use. Now, above and beyond that, getting into the juicy bits, believe it or not, more stimulants. So I did use this. Now, what did I add to it that was a bit more exotic? This was not, sorry to disappoint, not cocaine, but it was in fact dextroamphetamine. So if you guys don't know, Adderall is comprised of two, not like analogs. The word is technically a enantiomer. So this is, or an enantiomer. This is, I had to look that up because I didn't remember. It is a chemistry term. So basically it is compounds with exactly the same connectivity, but opposite three-dimensional shapes. So this is the composition of Adderall is comprised of these two different, enantiomers, which is dextroamphetamine and levoamphetamine. So it's not like Adderall is just some sort of like novel, brand new amphetamine structure or analog. Rather, it is a combination of two, what could otherwise be like generic drugs, essentially. So the ratio at which Adderall is presented is a 3-to-1 ratio, and it is the dextro relative to levoamphetamine, which for me, again, levoamphetamine is a bit more adrenergic and racy. It's a bit more aggressive. It's a bit more in your face. It's a bit more, I don't know, what's a good comparison is kind of like DMAA compared to DMHA. If you've tried pre-workouts with the two, you know that DMHA is a bit more smooth. You still feel it very well, but you do not get like a punch your head through the fucking wall type feeling. Whereas, so that's kind of like the best way I can describe it is Levo adds a little bit more of a punch to the Adderall than you would otherwise get from the dextro rotation. So for me, having just like a minor, I don't know, I guess it depends on what you consider minor dose. I'm a pretty high stim tolerance guy. So for me, especially with this fucking burden of 375 caffeine, 375 N-phenethyl dimethylamine citrate was already a fuck ton, to be honest, for most people. But again, have a high stimulant tolerance. I was underslept as hell. And I just, wanted to make sure I was dialed in. So 10 milligrams of dextroamphetamine is what I added on top. This is the smoother, less adrenergic and racy version, like I said. So for me, this combination was the stack. It was Gorilla Mind Smooth, foundational backbone, 6 capsules. This is the only actual like nootropic of the entire stack. So as far as something that actually enhances mental function in a like health promoting way, that's this. This is where you can get your choline requirements met. This is where you can support methylation. This is where you can get enhanced mental clarity, fluidity, information retention, memory formation, etc. Phenibut, whatever the fuck it's called, for that anxiolytic GABAergic activity, for kind of inhibiting fight or flight / I don't know, like social inhibition to some extent, I guess. And the L-theanine from this as well kind of contributes to that. Don't recommend it, just saying what I did. 2 scoops Gorilla Mode Energy mixed in my preferred beverage of choice, which is Diet 7-Up or Diet Sprite, as of now anyways. Or the Zevia ginger ale is actually pretty good too for mixing it. But anyways, and then after that, 10 milligrams of dextroamphetamine, not Adderall, not the levoamphetamine rotation, rather the smooth, kind of more chill little brother, dextroamphetamine at a 10 milligram dose. So for reference point, the dosage burden that some people are using for Adderall is like, 10 to upwards of like fucking 60 milligrams in some cases. So 10 is, at least according to Leo, is kind of the sweet spot where you can otherwise have it be sustainable, where you don't end up with some sort of like whiplash side effects down the line from consistent use. And even consistent use, not being every day, but like the majority of days per week. So that's not something I make a habit of necessarily, but this day was just like, you gotta be fucking locked in, dude, if you're gonna be in this situation, obviously. So for me, I think it worked out pretty well. I felt pretty good. I felt pretty dialed in. I felt pretty energetic, especially considering I spent like an hour setting up the podcast stuff and I was still a bit hesitant if it was working. And even while I was doing it, I was like, fuck, man, like I swear I'm gonna have peaking issues because I just know me and I know how shitty I am with my audio engineering or lack thereof. And that's in the back of my head, or at least, to some extent it was in the back of my head during the entire thing. But I think it went really well, and I'm glad I made it out there to do it. And maybe we'll do it again at some point. That'd be dope. So anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. That is the truth about the cocaine use and what I actually used. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplacemordates.com. Follow me on Instagram, @moreplacemordates, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok. Not TikTok, I'm fucking banned there right now. Coincidentally, because of a clip from that podcast, I think, because that's the only thing I posted like all December, and my account got banned, for seemingly no reason. So I don't know, is that going to come back at some point? Hopefully, but for now, I guess don't follow me there, but maybe by the time you see this video, it's back up, who the fuck knows. So Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, maybe TikTok at some point. Apple Podcasts, not BitChute, Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. And this is a hard outro, dude. I don't even remember my fucking structure. Like, it's been so long since I've done these videos. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, as well as pre-workout formulas to design myself from scratch. That's coming back a little bit. Merrick Health, my preventative medicine and hormone replacement therapy platform to connect you with doctors we have vetted that represent the most cutting edge literature, as well as basically what I try to put out on my channel as the most up-to-date information on hormone optimization, preventative medicine, etc. as well. Yeah, also the Gorilla Mind nootropic formula I mentioned, Gorilla Mind Smooth, as well as Gorilla Mode Energy. You can get it through the Gorilla Mind link with a discount code in the video description below. I should have mentioned that at the start of the support me thing. Help support me, obviously much appreciated when you guys use my stuff. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.